Well, hello everyone, welcome to another very exciting episode here on the MI Gardener channel. I'm really excited for this episode because we're going to be starting some seeds in a 72 cell tray for friends and family, and we're also going to be starting some seeds directly in the garden, and that's always fun. But I didn't want to just bring you along for that. I wanted to actually make it a video with some sustenance and some education to it. So as we always do on this channel, I want to incorporate that into this video, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about seeds that you should be direct sowing. We've talked about this in the past, and a few weeks ago we did a video on seeds you should never start indoors. It's actually going to be kind of a more positive version of seeds you should be starting outdoors. So it's going to have very similar content, but it's definitely going to be reinforcement that there are certain seeds you want to start outdoors, and I'm going to go through the reasons why you want to start them outdoors. Before we get into that episode, I want to talk about our sponsor today because we are having a sponsored video, which is why you do not have ads in the beginning of this video. The sponsor for today's video is a sponsor that we've had in the past, and that is So Perfect Cedar. My buddy Kirk over at So Perfect Cedar contacted us about 3 weeks ago and said, hey, I want to sponsor video, but I don't really know a good time to do it. Do you have any ideas? And I said, actually, we have a video coming up in about 2 or 3 weeks that we're going to do outside. We're going to be starting some herb seeds for my friends and family because we always do that every year. And then we're also going to be direct sowing. And he said, well, that's really awesome because the So Perfect Cedar is designed to start not only in cell trays, but also for direct sowing. And so I'm going to put it to the test today. I'm going to show you how it works. We've used it for about 2 years now and have absolutely loved it. We've even used it on non-sponsored videos. So if you think I'm only using it because it's a sponsored video, it could not be further from the truth. This is an incredible tool that every gardener should have at their disposal. It is very inexpensive. Kirk has done the work of making it as inexpensive as possible, which we love, but it's also very functional. And on this channel, we go for 3 things. It has to be affordable, it has to be functional, and it has to be made of high quality. So Kirk has gone the extra mile and made this a really good quality tool for every gardener that is not overcomplicated too. And that is one thing that I really like about it. You know, sowing with your hand, you're always going to take a lot more time because number one, you have to go back and pick out the seeds where you sow too many seeds in an area. Also, as those seeds sprout, then you have overcrowding, and also you've wasted seed because you've put more seed in a space than is what is needed. So you are going to save money with this tool, you're going to save time with this tool, and that is why we love it. So to get started using the So Perfect Cedar, what we want to do is we want to look at what we are planting. This is Genovese basil that we're going to be planting today. It's a great plant for beginners, and we want about 2 or 3 seeds per plug. And so each plug, each paddle, like I said, is corresponding to a letter and a number. We have a notebook that corresponds to a variety and the paddle type that we would use. So for Genovese basil, 1 seed per hole. I'm going to be using the 1D paddle here. The 1D paddle is great for 1 basil seed per hole. However, if I want 2 to 3, which I do want, I'm going to go with 1A. That's going to give me a few plants per plug, which is great because basil does not mind the crowding. And we're simply going to slide it into this tray here. This tray has a little trough that slides right into and clicks into place. And what makes this really nice is then this whole tray here is sealed off from the rest of the area. No seed's going to get over here, no seed's going to fall out. It's all enclosed right here. The paddle makes up the rest of the seal. And so what we're going to do is we're simply going to take our basil seed, the whole packet. We're going to dump all the seed in. And then what we're going to do is we're simply going to shake. We're going to tip it back and forth, filling those holes, and then you're going to simply give it a little tap. That makes sure any excess seed has fallen down here. And then what we're going to do is we're simply going to remove the paddle, and you'll see that every single hole has 2 or 3 seeds. Then what we're going to do is we're simply going to bring it over here to our 72 cell tray, tip it, give it a little tap. There is not a single seed left in the hole, and there are now 2 or 3 seeds in every single cell. Then we're simply going to slide it back, tilt, shake, and tap. Get some of those seeds there. Sometimes if they're a little flat, they have a tendency to stick a little bit, but not too bad to get those little excess seeds off there. Still way less time than sowing by hand. Tilt. All the seeds are gone. And we just continue. And this makes my life so much easier. There, all the seeds are gone. Tilt. All right, so we made short work of that 72 cell tray there. Got all the basil planted, and we're gonna get them covered up with some more soil, and we're gonna get them germinating so we can give them away as gifts. So family's gonna love that. That is awesome. The last thing I wanted to show you is a super cool feature that Kirk has here. So in the center of this tray here, I wanna be careful not to spill the seed, but in the center of this tray here, there's a trough. That trough is really nice because what we wanna do is we wanna take our seed, right? And we wanna tilt it into that trough. Give it a quick shake, make sure all the seed is inside that trough. Then what we're going to do is to eliminate all the mess and wasted seed, we're going to take that trough and we're simply going to line up our packet and we're just going to dump right into the packet there. No spillage, all goes back for a later time. We can seal the packet up and keep it for another time. So it's going to save time, it's going to save seed, and it's going to save money. That is a win-win-win, which is awesome. So now that that's done, let's go head over to the garden and let's quick talk about some varieties that you definitely want to direct sow in the garden because you're going to have far better success. So we're over here by our raised bed, by our pea trellis here, and that's one thing that we're going to be direct sowing. So peas are something that you want to direct sow because of the fact that they tend to grow very quickly. And because they have tendrils that like to climb, I don't like to start them indoors because you'll find that they begin to fall over and choke out other plants and they begin to vine on those plants, and it ends up just being a trampling match between things like tomatoes and things like peas. And I've found in my experience, peas somewhat always win because they're much faster growing and they're just really aggressive when it comes to the whole, duking it out type thing. So we like to start those outdoors. Other things that would apply in this kind of similar category are other vining crops. Things like squashes, vining squashes, things like vining pumpkins. Obviously all pumpkins vine, but things that vine, pumpkins, squash, watermelon, cucumbers, anything like that. They tend to get very large, very quick, and they also begin to vine. So it's best to start those outdoors because they do grow very quickly, and by the time you can direct sow them outdoors, you're not really losing that much time anyways. Other things that you want to direct sow outdoors are things like carrots, root crops. If you're growing things like carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, parsnips, you want to direct sow them outdoors. They're root crops. They do better direct sown because you don't want to damage the roots since that's what you're harvesting them for. If you damage the root system of a carrot, you'll find that carrots will begin to fork. If they fork, you're going to have a carrot that looks like it's a pair of pants, it's walking. You never know what a carrot's going to look like, but generally it's caused from root damage. It can also be caused sometimes from rocks in the soil, but more often than not, if you have good soil but still have forking crops, it's caused from root damage of some sort. And so if you want good quality carrots that are nice, beautiful, they're one nice, beautiful carrot, you want to make sure that you direct sow those in the ground, and that's going to give you the best chance of success. Another type of vegetable that you really want to keep outside because it's going to have better success are fast-growing vegetables. This also applies to flowers as well, things like sunflowers. Crops like pumpkins, as we mentioned, they grow very fast. Also things like okra. Very fast-growing crops do better outdoors because of the fact that if you cannot move them outside, but you start them inside, and they do grow very fast. Number one, they're going to compete for that space that your other smaller, slower growing seedlings are growing in as well. That's going to compete for sunlight and it's going to smother them out. Also, they're going to need more space because they grow very fast. That root system is very well established already and it's growing quickly. Where else do you move it? Well, you don't have the conditions to grow outside, but it's growing inside. What do? Well, if you don't have more lights or bigger pots, the only thing you can do is leave it there, and then that ends up stressing the plant out, and you'll find that once the plant is stressed, it really doesn't become unstressed. It will forever be slightly stunted, and that will affect things like yields, it'll affect things like disease, the disease resistance, and it just affects overall health. And so it's better to start those fast-growing crops directly outdoors for that reason. Another vegetable that's best direct sown outdoors for maximum success is corn. Corn grows very fast, so if you grow it indoors, A, it can get stressed from not having enough space. B is the root system. Once the root system of corn is stressed and compacted, it really does not do very well, and you'll end up with very short corn. A lot of times we see that where people will they'll sow corn indoors, and then they'll direct sow corn outdoors, and they'll wonder why the corn they started indoors only grows to be about 2 feet, whereas the corn they direct sow grows to be about 4 or 5 feet and does great. That's because of the stressed root system. If you direct sow corn right in the ground, it's going to have the right growing conditions right off the bat, and it's not going to have to worry about stressed roots. It's not going to have to be worried about transitions with weather. Corn is very particular about its growing conditions, and if you go from 70 degrees indoors to something like 40 or 50 degrees outdoors, that temperature shock can stunt the corn as well. It likes warm soil, and so when you direct sow it in warm soil and have it growing in warm conditions, there's really no temperature shock to stress the plant out, meaning your corn can grow very consistently and you're going to have better yields. So it's best to grow it outdoors, even though there are people that can have success when starting it indoors. The fact of the matter is you will have great success direct sowing it, guaranteed. And the final type of vegetable that you would have better success growing outdoors with is vegetables that don't require much spacing. If you do better with close spacing, things like high intensity lettuce, if you're growing high intensity lettuce, it's far better to direct sow those outdoors because of the fact that if you start them indoors and you start with a plant, it's very difficult to get that close spacing to maximize on your efficiency of your beds. If you start with starts, obviously you're limited by how wide the plug is. So if you're dealing with like a 1 inch by 1 inch plug, that means your spacing by default will be 1 inch apart. If you're starting with a 2 inch, a 2 inch cup or a 2 inch cell, that's going to be 2 inches apart between plants. And it's very difficult, it's impossible to get a plant any closer than that because the plug itself is a barrier. And so you want to keep that in mind, that if you want your spacing to be closer than what your seed starting tray allows for, it's best to direct sow those because it's going to allow you the ability to come in and thin, or to use something like a Sow Perfect seeder where you can have much closer spacing and you can kind of have a little more control over the spacing of your crops. All right, so I'm just gonna finish up here with my peas. I got one more row to go here and we're gonna be done. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you learned something new, and I really do also hope that you check out the Sow Perfect seeder. I'm gonna have links in the description box below over to sowperfectseeder.com. I hope you all will check it out, show Kirk some support for this amazing product, and thank you, Kirk, again for sponsoring this video. As always, this is Luke from the My Gardener channel reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch you all later. See ya.